Hello, my name is Blaine Einigner. I'm the project coordinator for the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. I'd like to thank you all for attending or viewing this presentation. I'll be providing a link to all the landowners, so hopefully you all can jump on and take a look at the presentation. I'll be presenting on the School Lake, Little Comfort Lake, Stream and Wetland Complex Enhancement proposed project. So we'll just jump right into the presentation. Share my screen here. All right, hopefully you all can see that. Again, my name is Blaine Einigner, project coordinator for the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. Jason Naber is a wetland specialist with Edmonds and Oliver Resources. He is the project engineer on this particular project. He's unable to attend, but if we do have any questions at all, and if there's something that I cannot answer, we can tap into him and get a response for you. Let's see. All right, so the proposed project is located on the stream channel between School Lake and Little Comfort Lake. This channel drains School Lake towards Little Comfort Lake. It flows through several wetland complexes. The reach itself is approximately 1.1 miles of stream, and it's highly modified. We have evidence of that just based on the structure of the stream channel. Generally, when streams flow through wetlands like this, it's a multi-thread channel in a natural system, I should say. It's usually a multi-thread channel. The wetland itself, you can think of it like a sponge. So it's multiple pores or multiple channels through a wetland complex. You very rarely see a single thread wide channel like this moving through a wetland system like this. Generally, the water would enter a wetland complex, go through the pores of the sponge, so to speak. The wetland itself would act as a filter, kind of like the sponge, using that analogy, absorbing some of the nutrient, any solids that are, or sediments that are being transported downstream, and using those nutrients to grow vegetation within the ecosystem. As water leaves the wetland complex, is generally cleaner than when it entered. In a degraded system like this, we actually see that the wetland is a source of nutrient. As water leaves School Lake and goes through the wetland complex, it's picking up total suspended solids and nutrient and delivering those downstream into Comfort Lake. So we're proposing a project within this area, within the wetland complex outlined in yellow. We're proposing to restore some of the hydrology of that area to enable it to act more like a natural wetland ecosystem, stabilize the water levels within the soils of the wetland, which will prevent the export of nutrient or reduce the export of nutrient, and just restore the general ecology of the area. The wetland itself is located between Jeffrey Avenue North and Itasca Avenue North, about midway down that channel between School Lake and Comfort Lake. So how and why did we identify this location as a potential project area? It's all due to our diagnostic monitoring. So in the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District, we do diagnostic monitoring on most of the lakes within the district. So we're looking at all the water inputs into a particular lake, whether it be tributaries, wetlands, ditches, etc. We collect water samples at each one of these locations, analyze them, take them to a lab for analysis to determine what type of phosphorus or nutrient content is in the water. Based on that information, we can look at all the sources or inputs into a lake and hone in on an area where we have a source of nutrient. Once we find a general area, we do another study which we look at, say, for example, a tributary. We would collect samples along that tributary where we have nodes or inputs into the tributary, such as a wetland or a ditch. And by a process of elimination, we can identify a location of nutrients loading for that system. Once we find that location, we can develop a project to mitigate for those nutrient inputs. So we take them out of the system. For the, and we do this for all the lakes, the majority of the lakes throughout the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. For the Little Comfort Lake, we did a phosphorus source assessment, and that's the study that we'll be talking about here today. Then we also follow that up by a stream physical habitat survey throughout the area. All this information is available online at www.clflwd.org under the data tab. Just go to Little Comfort Lake and you'll pull up all these reports if you'd like to look at them. So just again, here's a cover shot of the phosphorus source assessment. Again, you can locate that on our website. Basically what the study did is looked at the entire sub-watershed of the Little Comfort Lake area. We've got two main drainages, one from the east, which is from the Bone Lake area, and one from the southwest, the Heath Avenue area. So water flows out of Bone Lake, crosses Manning Avenue, enters into Birch Lake, then it crosses over July Avenue, enters into School Lake, flows out of School Lake through some wetland complexes in your backyard, and then crosses Itasca Avenue before entering Little Comfort Lake. We also have the drainage from the southwest, which flows out of the Heath Avenue area north into Little Comfort Lake. Those are our two main drainages, and we've got a monitoring network throughout the sub-watershed, as indicated on this map in the purple and pink dots here. So by putting the monitoring locations all throughout the watershed, we can again hone in on a potential source or input of nutrient in the basin. You can see whether the water upstream or downstream, as compared to downstream of that monitoring location, is degraded or better or worse water quality in regard to that location. So let's take a look at the data. So we've got flow weighted mean phosphorus concentration in micrograms per liter for the Little Comfort Lake phosphorus source study. We've got water from the eastern tributary here coming out of Bone Lake with relatively good water quality of mid-30s. It's going through a wetland complex, and then we're monitoring it at Manning Avenue, and you can see that it increases in phosphorus concentration. So we've got a potential source of nutrient in that wetland complex. The water then enters Birch Lake, where we have some treatment. We've got either settling of any of the sediments or ecological processes are using up some of those nutrient. The water then flows out of Birch Lake past the July Avenue tributary, where you can see that we're monitoring on the tributary. We've got a high input of phosphorus from that tributary. It just so happens that we've got it's an agricultural area along this tributary. We've got a large area of row crops, and then there's a cattle operation right on the tributary. So we've got both soils, sediments, and a manure coming down from this ag operation. So we've got high phosphorus concentration, and we can see that our concentration in the main channel of this tributary, as measured at July Avenue, is elevated. So we've got a source potentially here. As the water flows into School Lake, we have a sink, or we're using up some of that nutrient, again, due to the ecological processes of the lake. We are having some settling of any of those sediments, which usually have the phosphorus bound to them, or we've got the lake itself, ecological processes in the lakes using up some of that nutrient. Water leaves School Lake and flows through a wetland complex in your backyard. And we monitored again at Itasca Avenue. We can see that we've got elevated levels, indicating that the wetland in your backyard is a potential source of nutrient for this tributary. And then we've also got monitoring from the Heath Avenue sub-watershed, where you can see an elevated level there. So we've got multiple sources of nutrient throughout these both of these sub-watersheds within the Little Comfort Lake sub-watershed. And we're looking to treat or do projects in all these areas to resolve or reduce that amount of phosphorus entering into Little Comfort Lake. So in the Heath Avenue area, we're working on a project, a wetland enhancement project, that'll reduce that number. In the wetland between Bone Lake and Manning Avenue, we're continuing to monitor that wetland in hopes to develop a project in there as well. We're working with the ag producer, the farmer, on the July Avenue tributary, trying to help him optimize his cattle operation and improve his land management practices. And then we're reaching out to all of you to hopefully get a project going in the wetland complex in your backyard, wetland stream complex in your backyard. So all these things will come together to reduce nutrient inputs into Little Comfort Lake and improve water quality within Little Comfort Lake. Once we get all these external sources dealt with that are coming into Little Comfort Lake, then we can go in and do an internal treatment to deal with the internal loading of Little Comfort Lake. And that usually consists of an alum treatment, which binds some of the phosphorus that are in that's in the sediments of Little Comfort Lake at the bottom of the lake, and reduces the internal release of those nutrients back into the water column. So we've identified certain sources, potential sources of nutrient in the Little Comfort Lake subwatershed. We then did a stream assessment of the stream channel between Little Comfort and School Lake. And we'll just take a look here. We walked the entire reach, looking at physical habitat, taking some measurements, pool depth, wetted width, habitat type, etc. The survey found that there were no tributaries along the entire School Lake, Little Comfort Lake reach, stream channel reach. Therefore, there was no external sources of nutrient that were identified. The channel does flow through a vast wetland network that could be contributing to the turbidity and nutrient that we see at the monitoring location on Itasca Avenue. The long wetland lake channel may be a depositional area for sediments originating from historic upstream land management practices, or perhaps the source of these sediments and nutrients itself in the form of wetland soils that are slumping off into the channel. And the survey crew noted that there was approximately 1 to 2 feet of unconsolidated mucky soils along much of the stream channel throughout the survey area. A typical stream would have sands, gravels, cobbles. That's what you typically find in the stream channel. That gives further evidence to the altered state of this area. A channel being cut, that was cut through a wetland area, so we've got these mucky soils instead of natural scoured, a natural scoured stream bed that would have sands, gravels, etc. Regardless of the origin of the sediments noted within this reach, they are likely the source of the total suspended solids and excess nutrient noted in the water samples taken at Itasca. The sediments certainly appear to be capable of mobilizing or being transported downstream to Little Comfort Lake during high flows, spring runoff, or a large rain event throughout the year. So these soils are very unconsolidated, mucky. Step down in them and they get a plume of muck coming up. So easily mobilized and easily transported downstream. And we're seeing evidence of that in our monitoring data at the Itasca area. So we've identified these wetland complexes as a source of nutrient for Little Comfort Lake. So what we'd like to do is go in there and implement a project that will help reduce the amount of nutrient that's being exported downstream. So as currently proposed, the project would consist of a series of low profile weirs that could be used to stabilize the groundwater levels of the wetland complex surrounding the stream channel. And this would not increase any standing or open water outside of the stream channel. So we're not proposing to create a pond or a lake in this area. We're just trying to saturate the wetland soils. And the reason that we're doing that is because wetlands that are degraded like this tend to export nutrients stored in their soils when they cycle between wet and dry periods. So a normal, highly functional wetland has a fairly stable water table within it. It doesn't cycle from dry to wet, wet to dry. When wetlands do that, they tend to export nutrient. So consistent water level or groundwater level in the wetland would allow for storage and treatment of nutrient and would benefit wetland ecological function, wildlife, and downstream water quality. So the project would not expand the current footprint of the wetland. The goal would be just to stabilize the soil saturation or groundwater within the wetland surrounding the stream channel for a longer period throughout the summer. If you look at the map here, we've got the existing wetland boundary in yellow, and that's defined by state national wetland inventory. So we've got the wetland as defined by the state and by the federal government. And if you notice, we've got different layers of the yellow here. So those are different wetland types. And we've got the blue area, which would be the project area or area of increased saturation. And you can see that's not outside of the current wetland boundary. So again, we're not proposing to increase the wetland. We're just trying to stabilize the soils. No additional standing or open water would be created. And we do have a Clean Water Fund grant that we received from Board of Water and Soil Resources to implement this project. So we have funding in place. We're just working through the design and outreach with landowners. So just like to share a project that we implemented back in 2016, similar type of a situation. It's the Bixby Park project. This project is, for those of you that are not familiar, is located northwest of Forest Lake at the junction of Highway 35 and Highway 61. It's a large wetland complex that was ditched back in the day. The ditch network is degrading and it's reverted back into wetland. Monitoring data indicated that we had quite a bit of excess nutrient coming out of this wetland and flowing downstream into the Sunrise River. So 2016, we went in and installed 2 adjustable weirs at the locations, the yellow dots there located on the map. And then we did some excavation around the wetland channel itself to create additional storage and create some sinuosity within those ditches to make them a bit more stream-like. This was all done during the winter to minimize disturbance to the wetland environment. This project was highly successful. It is estimated to remove approximately 200 pounds of phosphorus per year from heading downstream into the Sunrise River, which flows into Comfort Lake. Similar map to what we looked at with the school Little Comfort Lake channel enhancement. We've got this time green indicating the defined wetland boundary. And then the blue is the project area, the area of increased saturation. So we installed the 2 adjustable weirs. They maintain water surface, or I should say groundwater elevation within the wetland complex. As a part of the permitting for this project, we could not impact any structures, and that would be the same for the project in your backyard. So for this project, we couldn't impact the housing development on the right there, or any of the highway infrastructure, any of the road prisons, etc. So this project was designed not to exceed an water surface elevation of 894 feet above sea level, which again is the blue outline. The weirs that were installed here are adjustable, so they can be removed and are removed in the fall to allow for free-flowing or near free-flowing system during the winter and spring to make sure that we're not backing up or flooding anything out during the springtime. And then they're reinstalled after spring floods or spring flows. This is to avoid any sort of a flooding or like a rain on snow event, unexpected rain on snow event, just to make sure that we're not impacting any of the infrastructure here in the area. And again, a very highly successful project, reduced phosphorus exports by over or near 200 pounds per year. So we're proposing something similar for the wetland stream complex in your backyard. The objective of this project would be to reduce excess nutrient exports, mainly phosphorus and total suspended solids, from the school Little Comfort Channel and wetland complex to help improve water quality in Little Comfort Lake, which is connected to Comfort Lake. That all flows into the Sunrise River and ultimately to the St. Croix River. So enhancement here, wetland enhancement here, would benefit multiple open water resources downstream of this wetland. So how are we proposing to do this? So we're looking at a series of low profile weirs that would maintain a groundwater elevation in the wetland just below 888 feet above sea level. According to the GIS ground surface elevation layers that we have right now, the proposed project would not increase the current wetland area nor create any open or standing water. So it would just be maintaining the groundwater elevation within that wetland to prevent the dry and wet cycling. This is estimated to reduce, or modeled, I should say, to reduce phosphorus exports by right around 60 pounds per year. So quite a significant reduction. It'll definitely benefit water quality in Little Comfort, Sunrise, and St. Croix. Oh, go back to that and talk about the weirs. So we've got a spread here of between 2 and 10. It's depending on the method that we choose to do here, the design that we go with. We're currently working with some of the permitting agencies to determine what's the best course of action here. It could be 1 or 2 rock weirs at strategic locations that would maintain that groundwater elevation, or it could be a series of 10, maybe even more beaver dam analogs. It's kind of a newer technology or newer strategy here, trying to mimic nature, create low head dams, essentially mimicking beaver dams. And you have to have a series of them throughout the stream channel because they're not very strong on their own, but they act together to withstand higher flows. So this is a bit of a newer thing for the area. So we're working with the permitting agencies right now to determine if they would be allowed and how we would go about permitting a project like this. So we're still very much in the early stages of this project. The next thing that we'd like to do is some survey work, which would be getting in, looking at the stream, wetland, upland resources, doing surveys that would both inform the design as well as ensure that we're not impacting areas outside of the wetland itself. So really get in there, determine water elevations, groundwater elevations, what we can accomplish to meet our goals and also reduce risk for the area in question. So that is the gist of the project here. I'm sure some of you have questions. If you do, please get a hold of me. I'd be happy to chat with you. Any of you can send me an email, give me a call. Be happy to meet with you also if you'd like. Come up to your property, walk and talk, take a look at the wetland, describe the project in a little bit more detail, and answer any questions that you might have. So please feel free to give me a call. And if you have any neighbors that weren't able to attend, or you could direct them to the link that I'll be sending out after the presentation, hopefully in the next few days. So again, thank you for your time.